Russell Westbrook, the NBA's triple-double king, the most athletic point guard of all time, a dynamic player who was unstoppable during his prime, too big, too strong, too fast. His intensity, passion, and love for the game is undeniable. Nobody plays harder than Russ. He was a top player back in his Oklahoma City days, and for many years was always in an MVP discussion, recording triple-doubles on a nightly basis, creating highlights like we've never seen before, with his acrobatic plays and hitting game winners. Lately, there's been a lot of Russell Westbrook slander. Many fans and media members are blaming Russ for the lack of success in LA. In this video, I'll go over why Russell Westbrook never panned out as a point guard and continues to make erratic decisions even after a decade in the NBA. To see why, let's take you back where it all started. Russell Westbrook was taken with the 4th overall pick in the 2008 draft by the Seattle Supersonics, who eventually relocated to Oklahoma City. Under the Thunder coaching staff, Russ was turned into a point guard for two reasons. 1. At the time, the Thunder had two young studs, Kevin Durant and Jeff Green, who will provide the bulk of the scoring. 2. At 6'3", Russ is a little undersized to play the 2, and the coaching staff preferably wanted bigger point guards. Throughout his entire life, Russ was a shooting guard, a scorer, an attacker, someone who puts fear into the opponents with his ferocious dunks. But once he got to the pros, he was asked to do something completely different. Be a true point guard. He was asked to run the offense, get teammates involved, and figure out the post of the team. Needless to say, his transition to point guard had its ups and downs. At times, Russ looks great, driving to the paint and kicking it out to a wide open man for a 3-ball. A few minutes later, Russ will soar through the air for a nasty putback slam. And then later in the same game, Westbrook's warp speed approach will lead to 5 turnovers, bricks an ugly 3-pointer, or fall asleep on defense. Sometimes Westbrook is the most exciting player in the league, creating a highlight out of nowhere, and other times you can't help it but wonder why. Why would you do that, Westbrook? What were you thinking? Ladies and gentlemen, that's the beauty of Russell Westbrook's game. In Oklahoma City, it was pretty apparent right off the bat that KD was going to be one of the best scorers in the history of the NBA. By his third season, KD became the youngest player to lead the league in scoring at just 21 years old. It was Westbrook's job to feed KD the ball. But instead, there were far too many occasions where Russ took more shots than the scoring champion. KD was naturally a gifted scorer due to his height and shooting touch. Dropping 30 was a piece of cake for Durant. KD was always an efficient scorer, and one of a few players to go 50, 40, 90 over the course of a regular season. Russ was the complete opposite, a below average shooter, inefficient, and takes way too many difficult shots. With the addition of James Harden, the Thunder quickly became a playoff team and made some noise in the playoff. Just in their second season playing together, the trio of KD, Russ, and Harden got all the way to the Western Conference Finals against the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. It was during this series where you started to see the flaws and poor decision making of Russ. In Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals, head coach Scott Brooks benched Westbrook in the 4th quarter, sticking with backup point guard Eric Maynard down the stretch to secure OKC's only win in this series. I know you're probably wondering, who the hell is Eric Maynard? Maynard was a journeyman who spent 4 seasons with the Thunder and was Westbrook's backup. Coach Brooks praised Maynard's effort. I thought Eric did a good job, and this time coming out, I stayed with Eric. Eric was terrific at handling the decisions on the court. OKC was on a big stage, and this really magnified the weakness in Russell Westbrook's game. Not to mention, veteran point guard Jason Kidd was on the opposite end and helped orchestrate the Mavs offense. But given Westbrook's young age, Thunder fans were hopeful that this was a valuable lesson for him. In the 2011-2012 season, with the bitter taste of losing to the Mavericks fresh in their mind, the young Thunder came back stronger. Behind their 3-headed monster, Oklahoma City punched a ticket to the NBA Finals. This time, they returned the favor by knocking out Dallas in the first round, and then took out the Lakers and Spurs. Russ averaged 21.7 points, 5.2 boards, and 5.6 assists in the Western Conference playoffs. In the 2012 NBA Finals, OKC will face LeBron James and the Miami Heat. The Thunder just came off a thrilling win over the Spurs, while the Heat needed an all-time great performance by LeBron just to squeeze by the Celtics. OKC was favored and picked by the majority of the media to be crowned champions. Kevin Durant got the Thunder off to a great start by scoring 36 points to help Oklahoma City take a 1-0 lead in the finals. But everything came crumbling down after that. It was during halftime of Game 2 where Hall of Famer Magic Johnson was very critical of Russell Westbrook. Magic said, "That was the worst point guard in the championship finals I've ever seen. He was too wild. He was taking off-balance shots. You got to come out and set the tone with Kevin Durant. Russell Westbrook has got to set the tone with Kevin Durant." These weren't criticisms due to Westbrook's poor shot selection and decision making. Despite what Magic said, if you didn't watch the game and just looked at the box score, you'd think Russ had a great game because he had 27 points, 7 boards, and 8 assists. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Russ, when asked about Magic's criticism, responded, "I'm not making no adjustments regardless of what anybody says. I'm going to play my game regardless of what happens." Even the great Magic Johnson's words of wisdom couldn't get through to Russ. In Game 2, Russell Westbrook shot 10 of 26, that's 39% compared to KD, who shot 12 of 22 at 55%. Throughout the NBA Finals, Russ averaged 24 field goal attempts per game, converting at a 43% clip, and shot a whopping 14% from behind the arc. KD, on the other hand, took 21 shots per game, converting at 55% and 39% from downtown. I know 3 more shots per game is not a lot, but when you factor it in over 5 games, it starts to add up, and the percentages are in KD's favor by a landslide. After taking Game 1, the Thunder dropped the next 4 games as LeBron James got his first taste of champagne. There was no shame losing to the veteran Miami Heat, but OKC could have played better. The Thunder were young. KD, the oldest member of the Big Three, was only 23 years old. Russ was still learning to be a point guard, and James Harden just won the 6th Man of the Year. We all figured this is just the beginning of a golden era in Oklahoma City, and this would be the first of many trips to the finals. But unfortunately, Game 5 of the 2012 finals would be the last time KD, Russ, and Harden played together. Harden was traded to Houston in the offseason. Russell Westbrook's point guard play never really changed over the next couple of seasons. He continued to play the same way. He took way too many off-balance shots, turnovers at critical moments, gambling for steals, and falling asleep while on defense. All of these issues were masked by Russ and KD's talent. The Thunder kept winning and continued making deep playoff runs. They were always in title contention. With that being said, what if Russ became a better point guard? What if he stopped making crucial mistakes at the worst possible time? Would the Thunder have won a championship? The Heat and Spurs were very good during that time, and soon after that, the Warriors came out of nowhere and took over the league. But it's certainly possible that OKC could have slid in there and won a championship. But here are 4 reasons why Russell Westbrook never got better as a point guard. 1. Coaching. Scott Brooks was a good coach, and the Thunder became a powerhouse once he took over. But he never really held Westbrook accountable. Brooks enabled Russ too much and gave him the green light to do whatever he wanted. He had no idea how to keep Russ under control, and that's part of the reason why Russ developed those bad habits, and sometimes play at 100 miles per hour. Brooks was never able to reel Westbrook in, never able to contain Russ's energy. That sometimes backfires because he was going too fast or trying too hard. Sometimes to help a player grow, you have to show him tough love. A lot like Greg Popovich and how he coaches Tony Parker. 2. Playing style. There was no shortage of talent on the roster when you have Russ and KD, and they literally play street ball on the NBA court. My turn, your turn. Because Russ and KD were so talented, it worked. But when you play the elite teams, those isolations don't work in a playoff. There was no ball movement, no cutting. Everybody stood and watched Russ and KD go to work. Russ is so energetic. Why doesn't he move without the ball or cut to the basket? Team ball was never really the Thunder's DNA, and that's why their assist numbers were always near the bottom of the league. Surprisingly, the year they made it to the finals, they were dead last. We've all heard of the phrase, the ball has energy. Traditionally, teams who move the ball around and create easier buckets for each other are more successful, because all 5 guys feel like they're involved in the play, like the Warriors and Spurs. But in OKC, there wasn't a lot of ball movement being preached. 3. KD's lack of leadership. There's no doubt Kevin Durant was the best player on the team, arguably the best scorer of all time. KD had it all. Length, touch, inside, outside, mid-range, a nasty crossover. There's literally no weakness, but why doesn't he demand for the ball more? There are far too many occasions where KD deferred to Russ. Back in 2012, Skip Bayless went after Westbrook for taking more shots than KD, and Durant fired back at Bayless and said, "He don't know shit about basketball. We're worse when I take more shots. We're better when he does do that, and he's aggressive." It's moments like this that empowers Russ to keep playing the same way. KD eventually got fed up and left. 4. Westbrook's inability to adapt. Russ is a stubborn player, and part of that stubbornness helped him become a Hall of Fame player that he is today. But he has to start playing in one way. He won't adapt or change his game. The NBA is not a shooting league. Russ never got better as a shooter. Instead, he's getting worse. Teams are daring him to make wide open threes. He's a turnover machine and on far too many occasions gambles on defense or falls asleep behind the wheel. Since leaving OKC, Westbrook has been on 3 different teams. Still a good player, but he's no longer the player we once knew in Oklahoma City. And there's a lot of rumors out there that the Lakers may move Russ before the trade deadline. Anyway, that's all for today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. Have a fantastic day.